Here in Orange County, the Right to Clean Water Charter Amendment would stop pollution at the source. Healthy waters mean healthy families and good-paying jobs.
Vote yes on Charter Question 1, the right to clean water.
Please vote yes on Charter Question 1.
Clean water is essential. Vote yes for clean water.
Vote yes on Charter Question number 1.
Vote yes on Charter Question 1 by November 3rd.
Paid political advertisement by the Right to Clean Water Political Committee.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Right to Clean Water. We're pleased to have as guest this week, to my left, we have Cynthia Harris, who's a very well-known community advocate for the west side of I-4 especially. How are you doing today, Cynthia?
I'm doing wonderful.
Well,
Thank you.
You're looking lovely as always.
Thank you.
And speaking of looking lovely, we also have Steve Myers, attorney Steve Myers. How you doing today, Steve?
I'm doing great, Chuck. How about you?
Oh, doing fantastic.
Great.
And then on the phone, we have Joe Benasia down in Lee County. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Hey, Chuck, doing great down here. Thank you.
I hear you have a special problem going on down there now with, I guess they're releasing water from Lake Okeechobee into the Caloosahatchee.
We are watching that closely because obviously it has impacted greatly in the past. 2018 was a horror show with all the blue-green algae and the exacerbated red tides. So down here, we're always looking over our shoulder at what's going to happen when they release water from the Lake O.
Yeah, I saw some photos today in a news press article down there. They had 10 pictures of around Sanibel, and the water was brown and nasty, and I'm sure it's not drawing tourists to Fort Myers Beach or Sanibel or Captiva.
Well, that always is a concern of ours. Our tourist economy took a wicked hit in the past years because of those issues.
Yeah. Well, it's about to happen again, unfortunately. So we're going to talk today about what we as citizens can do to change that dynamic, to change the dynamic of the state and the federal government allowing pollution into our waterways to the point that it affects the quality of our water and thereby the quality of our life. And in particular, we're going to talk today about communities of color and especially how water pollution affects them disproportionately. Now, I know Cynthia has been an advocate in this area for a long time. Cynthia, can you give us a couple of examples of what's gone on this west side?
Well, a lot of things have happened in the past 40, 50 years. We had the building of the East-West Expressway, which after time has caused flooding throughout various communities all the way to Gotha. So with that, and being the west side is the low income industrial side, you have people who have poured pollutants and all kinds of things in the ground. And we've been the dump site on this side. So we used to have a city dump over here. We have a waste management plant over in the Richmond Heights area. And now there's the lawsuit for Tangelo Park.
Right. Steve, when it comes to bringing an action to stop pollution or to restore a water body or what have you, what are the special obstacles to communities of color in bringing an action to stop something like that?
Well, they're primarily financial. But on top of that, nobody can bring an action in Florida to stop pollution if the polluting corporation has a permit. And we local citizens have no say whatsoever in whether or not a polluting corporation gets a permit in the first place. But if a neighborhood, particularly lower income neighborhood, tries to stop a development or pollution, one of the things they're going to have to do in every case is they're going to have to hire experts. For example, in Princeton Oaks, which is off of W.D. Judge Drive, the mayor of Orlando and the Orlando City Commission thought it would be a fantastic idea to level 120 acres of mature forested wetlands to build, are you ready for this? A warehouse complex. And I know Chuck and Cynthia, both of you guys were very actively involved in trying to stop that. So we tried to stop it with a lawsuit. And we can maybe get into this later, Chuck, in a little more detail. But in order to try to stop something like that, at a minimum, the people in the neighborhood or somebody is going to have to hire experts, including an environmental engineer, a traffic engineer, a hydrologist, maybe a soil person. And we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars just to have a shot.
Yeah, Steve, when you talk about Princeton Oaks and Cynthia and I were at the community meeting there with residents. And I made the comment at that time, if somebody were to come to, for instance, the Wekiva State Park and say, we want to take 120 acres of this beautiful park and clear cut it and build a warehouse complex right next to Markham Woods Road, you could probably raise $150,000 in about 15 minutes by the residents in that area. But when it comes to the area around John Young and Princeton and Silver Star and especially Mercy Drive, to get the residents to be able to come up with $150,000 for a lawsuit, it's nearly impossible. Is that right, Cynthia?
That's correct, because you have residents who are on a fixed income, so they can't spare the change. You have working families who now can barely get a full-time position, have to work 2 or 3 part-time jobs just to make ends meet. They can't spare the change.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the problems that we run into is this issue of standing. So if something's going to happen in this neighborhood around Princeton Oaks, normally the people who bring the action have to prove that they've been either financially or physically impacted. So those would be, in this case, people who live in that neighborhood, right? So the zone of several hundred yards around the in this case, the warehouse complex, that's where you have to have your pool of plaintiffs. But one of the great things about the right to clean water and the Charter Amendment is that as long as you're a resident of Orange County for at least a year, you can bring that action to stop that pollution. Right. So you don't have to live here. You could live, in another part of Orange County and bring that action. You tell us a little bit about standing and what that's all about, Steve?
Yeah, well, you nailed it, Chuck. Standing technically is somebody that has a sufficient stake in a justiciable controversy. That's the legal definition. And the courts have looked at these pollution cases a lot of times, and they've denied standing to individuals and even to big groups like the Sierra Club. And there's cases where the courts have said to the Sierra Club, you may be a big organization, you may have hundreds or thousands of members, but you don't have enough members right on the bank of that river where there's a direct connection, there's enough of a connection for you to have standing. And so these people have a perfectly legitimate reason to try to stop this pollution, and they get thrown out on that technicality. You didn't plead it right. You didn't plead that the group recreated on that river, or that the group was injured. And we've also historically treated these cases as injury cases. If somebody has a fish camp or a marina or something like that, yeah, they probably have standing, but they may not have the assets or be so inclined to get involved in litigation. And the beauty of Amendment 1, the Clean Water Charter question, is that now, like you said, Chuck, anybody in the county that's lived there for a year can jump in and file that action.
Yeah, it's great. Now we're also being joined by David Moritz, who is in Alachua County. Let me see if I can bring him up. Dave, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you fine, Chuck.
Okay, good. Welcome to the discussion, Dave. And David has been working on the Santa Fe River Bill of Rights. You want to tell us a little bit about that, Dave?
I do, but I want to ask a question first, if I may, of Stephen.
All right, let's go to the question and answer then.
That has to do with this idea of experts. What is a good way around that? I mean, have any communities anywhere in the U.S. found ways around that sort of issue?
Not really, Dave, that I'm aware of, because when you think about anytime you bring any type of civil action, if you're the plaintiff, you have a burden of proof. And certain things require expert testimony because they're not within the province of an ordinary juror to understand or a lay witness to explain. For example, flow rates of underground water, or what type of pollutants are in the water, or the levels. So anytime you're talking about water pollution or environmental harm, I can't think of a single case where you would not need experts, and somebody's going to have to hire them, and they're very expensive.
So do the developers always have to do that? I mean, I know that a lot of times I hear developers having experts testify when they're getting special permits from the county.
Oh, yeah, the developers have a lot of money, and the developers have their hired guns, and they bring these bioprostitutes to community meetings. Chuck's been there, Cynthia's laughing because we've all been to a couple of these meetings together. And they tell the citizens, and it's really kind of disgusting, Dave, and I'm sure you've seen this, particularly when it's in a lower income community, and they try to sell this bill of goods to people that, the Princeton Oaks warehouse is going to create jobs in that area. In fact, has created none. Or a Subaru car dealership, which is going to require them knocking down 73 acres of mature forest, is going to create all these jobs for the local people. And so they come in with their experts. They've got them lined up. And sometimes they have experts like a guy named John Miklos, who also was the chairman of the St. John's Water Management District. So you have a complete conflict of interest. So they bring their hired guns in. But once they lay it out, and once they get the testimony and make the record from these experts, if you want to stop that development in the community, you have to come up with your own experts.
Yeah, and Cynthia, one of the not too long ago situations was with the Walmart, right? It was going to be located on a wetlands parcel, and they made a deal to use and fill in acreage on that wetlands parcel, and then preserve the rest of it, right? And then they're going to put it in a conservation easement. So they said, here's the deal with the devil, right? You allow this development here, but then you protect all this area over here, which sounds all well and good, unless, and in this case, a couple of years go by, and John Miklos, because you're naming names.
Yep.
Steve. And
yes, I am.
You're going to protect this.
Yeah. Bring it on. Bring it on, John.
If he comes after us. But he, as the chair of the St. Johns River Water Management District, can orchestrate the release of these conservation easements. And that's what happened there. The deal was made, okay, this is put into conservation. A couple of years later, it's released from the conservation easement, and they're looking to build more on that property now. So, and I know this is something that Cynthia is familiar with, because she keeps butting her head against the city council and the county commission. And what's it like for you, Cynthia? I mean, what do you do to try and stop these kind of things?
Well, if we know about it in advance, we try to go to the zoning board and permitting departments before it even becomes an issue with any of the commissioners who already know what's going on, and they just kind of pass it along like a little kid that's quietly sitting still in school. So a good example was when we went to the Board of Zoning and Adjustment when we were trying to fight the shelter. And they said it was a detrimental intrusion, which everything that they do in our community is a detrimental intrusion. Luckily, the BZA was on our side that one time. So how they got over was they said, well, we'll pass it along to the city. And then they stuck it in the middle of the thoroughfare of West Colonial, the heart of the Black community entryway, and put a shelter there. Even though they're own moratoriums, that they broke their own laws, they put something that says that no shelter or any social services entity can move within the district. That shelter moved from downtown Orlando District 5 to West Colonial District 5. And when you go before the commission on both sides, they pretend to listen to you. The only difference is they don't turn their chairs around with their back turned to you, and they let you do your 3-minute spiel, and they say thank you, goodbye, but we're gonna bulldoze your house down.
When you when you bring that up, and we've talked about that before, about the way the system is set up, and it's set up such that the city council or the county commissioner or the board of zoning adjustment or whoever it is, they're all lined up, and then you come with your members of your community, 3, 4, 5, 10, and you talk for 3 minutes each. And then how many times, because you've been doing this for years, how many times have you gone and talked for 3 minutes each, and the city council or county commission goes, my God, you've really hit the nail on the head, and we are totally going against the developer here. We're going to deny that. I mean, how often does that really happen?
It rarely happens. And like I said, the instance of the shelter, BZA said, hey, this is a detrimental intrusion. They passed it along. We went before the county commissioners, and finally they said, you know what? Okay, we'll let it go, knowing that they were going to pass it off to the city.
Mhm.
So, it's your turn, no, your turn. Or I'm showing my age here, the Life cereal commercial. Let's get Mikey to eat it. He'll eat anything. So,
Yeah. Well, Joe, down there in Lee County, you guys are kind of the butt end of the pollution from Lake Okeechobee. And what do you all do? Do you go in front of some board or something to try to get them to stop releasing that polluted water into the Caloosahatchee? I mean, how do you go about trying to stop that now?
I think that different organizations and entities have used just about all the traditional avenues that one can think of. Yes, we've gone to the Southwest Florida Water Management District. We've gone to all our commissioners. I mean, even our own officials are, screaming and yelling for help, but that only can do so much. I mean, one of the reasons why we're pursuing this new avenue is because the old ways aren't working. It's just like banging your head against the wall over and over again. Cynthia made me think of an of a situation we down here. It didn't involve water, but there was a firm that wanted to build a mine where nobody wanted a mine. And literally hundreds of citizens came to hearings to speak out against this mine. And you can figure what happened. The County Board of Commissioners approved the mine anyway. It was just a fruitless effort for all these people to show up. That seems to be the way things go on, over and over again. That's the historical way. It's frustrating and it doesn't get us anywhere.
One of the things that I think is the reasons why it's set up that way, Cynthia, is if you go to members of your community and you're trying to stop something, let's say some polluting entity or a mine, like Joe was saying, and you go and door to door and you knock on doors and you say, listen, you all have got to take the day off on Tuesday because this item's coming up on the agenda, and you have to be there when the item comes up on the agenda. So it may come up at 9 a.m. and it may come up at 2 a.m. because the agenda's not out yet. So you had to take the whole day off.
Mhm.
All right. Now, we're going to meet down at City Hall, and we're going to wear red shirts, or we're going to wear green shirts, or we're going to wear blue shirts. But we're all going to meet, and we're going to line up and, write your comment out. You write your comment out. And then you give your comment, and you make the most spectacular 3-minute comment known to mankind. And you finish your comment, and then it's a time for the vote. Okay. And okay, are we going to vote for this project or not? Yes.
They don't even ask. They just say, okay, time for the vote. Can I get you to motion Commissioner so-and-so?
Yeah. No, I have a second. All in favor. Boom. So here's the problem. You've gone out on the line. You've asked everybody to take the day off. They all took the day off. They came in. They waited around. They wrote out what they were going to say, and they got shot down as though they had never even said a word. That nobody had listened. What happens the next time you go to the same people? You say, listen, this is really important. I want you to take the day off. I mean, what do they tell you about taking the day off and going back down there?
They tell me it's not worth it. They don't listen. Our voices don't matter. They say, well, that's what they do. That's what they always do. Same thing that the mayor told a couple of our citizens. Well, that's what we always do to you.
Yeah, that was about locating industrial projects on the west side. Why are you doing this? Because that's what we always do. That's where they run the path of least resistance. I mean, they don't go into the really nice neighborhoods on the east side. They're not going to go into Delaney Park and put a warehouse project. They're not going to take the park in Delaney Park and clear cut it and put up a warehouse project.
Right.
Not even over by the airport in Narcoossee, where they have a lot of buildable land.
Chuck, if I may, there's a couple of things that come to my mind about what you just described about these meetings. And I'm a little bit new to the game. I started in about 2015 when I met you. I know, Cynthia, you've been doing this for years, and Chuck, you've been doing it for years. And I know a lot of people listening have this same frustration of lining up, orderly, step up to the mic, get your 3 minutes. And the people you see that step up, these are intelligent people. I mean, these are professional people. We get biologists, we get doctors, we get business people, we get lawyers saying, please, please, please do not build this. And almost every time it gets built, and it's infuriating. And you just feel like almost getting violent in these meetings. And sometimes people do get violent. And sometimes that actually seems to work out better. I'm not advocating violence, but you see it on the media when you have a county commission meeting and the people are about ready to riot.
Right.
Then sometimes you win, right? But everybody's nice and orderly, and you always say the pledge before, and you always lose, don't you?
Well, the other thing about that is they'll schedule it as the last thing on the
Yeah.
agenda when
Yeah.
they know that there's a large group of people going to show up. So then if someone has to go back to work or they have to care for a grandchild or a loved one, they can't stay there all day.
Right.
And so by the time they see the room is kind of clear, then they'll call it up on the agenda
Yeah.
because then they have less speakers. And then the other thing that has happened is if you get the right people on board to agree with you, that's part of their inner circle, they'll cancel it and strike it off the agenda, thinking that you're going to forget about it, and then they try to slip it in at another date.
All right. So if I can, I want to follow up on that because, we all know that the City of Orlando Commission and Mayor are owned by developers. Let's just be honest. Let's just get it out there. We almost never win anything. We never stop a damn development in the City of Orlando. And in the past, 5 out of the 7 Orange County commissioners, including the mayor, are pro-developer people. Everybody knows that that's paying attention. But I think things are changing. And we're starting to win some of these elections. And here's the big thing, though. Chuck can vouch for me on this. In 3 races going right now, Patricia Sigmund in Seminole County, who supports right of nature, Barbara Cady in Osceola County, who's running for state rep, who supports rights of nature, and who went to virtually every Orange County Charter Review Commission meeting for the Right to Clean Water Amendment 1, even though she lives in Osceola. And in Nicole Wilson's race, who got elected to the Orange County Commission, the number one attack from their Republican opponents was not taxes. It wasn't gun NRA stuff. It was rights of nature. So we've got their attention. And I think the narrative is changing. I think the public is getting engaged. I mean, how many times, Chuck, have you seen so many articles in the Orlando Sentinel about an environmental issue like rights of nature?
Well, I was actually talking about this yesterday on an interview with a California television station. And when we started this project out, I would say back in April of 2019, and we talked about, the right for clean water, rights of nature. It was like you just landed from Mars and you've got little antennas coming out of your head. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That is the craziest thing, a river having rights. I mean, but as we've gone on and through the educational process of this amendment, and, you have community leaders like Nicole and Maribel Cordero and Cynthia and Samuel Velchez Santiago, who have appeared on our commercials.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, maybe these people know something that we don't know. And then you talk to them about, well, a corporation has rights. Corporation has the rights of a human. They have a Second Amendment right, a Fifth Amendment right, 14th Amendment. They have all these rights because why? Because they're a corporation. And, the 3 of us could start a corporation on a cell phone and with $75 right now and then have all the rights of a human. So why is it that a river that's been around for tens of thousands of years can't have the right to exist or the right to flow or the right to maintain a healthy ecosystem? And all of a sudden, I'm starting to feel that the opposition is like, uh-oh, people are starting to understand the way we stack the deck, right? This whole idea of we can't sue because we're not financially or physically impacted is and that's why a lot of these things are happening on the west side here, is because the people that live within a few hundred yards, they don't have the resources. The people who are physically and financially, they don't have the resources. And then the people like myself who lives in Apopka, and I went to comment on an issue down in this area, and one of the city commissioners says, "Well, Mr. O'Neill, I appreciate you coming down all the way from Apopka. It's like I'm an alien. Like I don't have a right to say anything that's going on in this area. So if we empower people from all over Orange County to take action within anywhere in Orange County, I think that's one of the big things about this charter amendment and what it will do when it passes."
Yeah, we're very fickle about outsiders coming in
Yeah.
into
who
our
gets to-
community, and then if you bring that outsider in there, then they look at you cross-eyed too. So we try to keep bringing the experts in, and thank you for taking all the shots. Because we can shoot pretty well over here. So we may not be able to financially fund the things that are most important, but we can pull out the shots.
Well, it's also the fact that even though we're looking at 100 or a couple hundred yards from the project being those people who would have standing normally, what's happened here has really affected downstream the Little Wekiva River, because we see a report on TV. It's like, what happened to my river? Somebody who lived on the river walks out back. It's just a patch of mud now, because what has happened here has impacted everything that's going on downstream. And then, as we said in court, it's like, why isn't this person downstream able to get notice of things that are happening right here, like the whole restructuring of the waterways down here, filling in wetlands and turning the flow of water in a different direction? Why aren't the people upstream able to come down and have some kind of effect here?
There's another piece to this puzzle. The big corporations and the big developers hate the idea of having to go to court. And what they say is, oh, it's going to cost money. It's going to cost us money. We're going to have to pass it on to the consumer. That's not what's going on.
They pass it to us anyway.
They do. And that's not what they're afraid of. It's not the cost. And often they've got insurance anyway. What they're afraid of is losing control. They can, to quote Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who did a great job with Amy Coney Barrett, they can go swaggering in to the Orlando City Commission and the mayor's office and Orange County Commission, the big developers, to throw their money and their weight around. And they can feel pretty confident that they're going to get what they want. They can't do that to a jury. They can't do that to a judge. If they try to do that to a jury, they're going to jail for jury time. And big polluting corporations hate the courtroom because they can't control the game. And that's another reason why it's so important people vote for the right to clean water, Charter Amendment 1, because we're taking this game away from behind closed doors with politicians and we're putting it into an open courtroom with full cross-examination in public of the experts and full argument in public, none of which exists in the back rooms of the city commissioners or whatever restaurants they're meeting with the developers at. So that's what the big corporations are afraid.
And to piggyback off of that, it's not beneath them to send letters of intimidation. You hear about what's going on these days about the election where they're making threats to Democrats to vote for Trump. But the same city commissions, lawyers will send letters to people like myself who are fighting against it and threatening to take our property and to sue us. That's the same thing that happened with Princeton. The people that filed a lawsuit against the developers in the city, they in turn threatened to take their properties, and that's why they dropped the lawsuit.
Yeah. Dave, I know you have been fighting up there the Nestle. Is it Nestle that wants to take water out of the Santa Fe River?
Yeah, it is. Well, they're taking out a spring that feeds the Santa Fe River.
Yeah. What are the kind of issues are there with the Santa Fe River besides water withdrawals?
Well, of course, it's down. It's been down for a number of years. It's been down about 11 million gallons and per day, and it's they're saying, oh yeah, well, basically in the last, no, it's over 5 years now. It's like pretty much 6 years since they've just pretty much blown past the last year in which they were supposed to go back and rewrite the rule for protection of the river. But it's an impaired river, and that requires action on the part of FDEP and the Water Management District shouldn't even be considering giving a permit out to an impaired river. But of course, what their solution to that is to say, okay, well, we thought it was impaired 5 years ago, but we're now deciding that the rules for impairment have been changed. And really, we could probably take another, 11 million gallons or so out of this river per day and be just fine. And so, Nestle wants a million plus gallons a day for their bottling plant there. And they don't even own the spring. And according to the law, they're supposed to have, to get the permit to actually get the permit, the Seven Springs Corporation is supposed to be a bottler, but they're not a bottler. So there's this kind of murkiness going on in the background. The district personnel themselves have recommended against giving the permit, but immediately when that happened, the Nestle said, well, we'll just get around that. We'll take this to an administrative court hearing. So they went that route, and there's other things going now, but. Let me just add one thing to the conversation that's been going on. I've been going through this sort of thing myself for the last 8-10 years. And every time I would go into, an administrative hearing or go into, to talk to a board of county commissioners outside of my own, unfortunately, they would say, do the same thing that you guys are noticing, where they do everything but turn their backs to you. They listen very politely, to you and say, oh, we're so glad you're here, and then they vote the opposite direction. So, your time was wasted. You drive an hour or two here and drive an hour or two there, and it adds up after, a number of years of doing that all the time. And, it was like, not this past spring, the spring before last, I was down at your house and hearding a presentation made by Thomas Lindsay, who's an attorney. And it was like, there's this, we call it an aha moment, a realization. You can intellectually know something, but then you realize something, and it's like a light goes off in your head, and you go, I really get it now. And what I got was that I wasn't ever going to get anywhere by going to those meetings. And in my mind, right then in that moment, I said, I'm not doing that anymore. And I had somebody, I remember about a week or two later, someone posted something, and they said, oh, there's this meeting, and we're all going to do this. And I posted around, I said, well, I'm not going. I'm spending my time to change the system now because the system is broken. It's fixed. I mean, corruption fixed, but it needs to be broken. It needs to be changed, and that's basically what Santa Fe River Bill of Rights was designed to do. That's what a right clean water is meant to do. That's what we're doing with the Florida Rights of Nation Network. We're changing the system. It's going to take us some effort. It's going to take us some time to reach people's hearts. What was the line? I forget what it was exactly. The exact line that came from Martin Luther King is if you can change a person's heart, then you can change their behavior. And that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, well, somebody also said, I'm not sure who it was, but there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come, right? So here's the idea is that we know how the system works, and we know it's not working to our benefit. So we're going to go in and county by county or city by city, change the law, change the way the law operates, and enable and empower citizens to have the right to clean water. And then if somebody violates that right, then we have the right to bring in action against the pollution source. And we're so trained by the Clean Water Act to accept pollution, because the Clean Water Act said basically you, Mr. Industry, can pollute up to a level that it starts to kill people, right? The maximum contamination level. So as long as you stay under that, as long as you stay under that, you're okay. But the problem with that is not everybody is the same. And what we see in a lot of areas is that women especially are more prone to have different kinds of cancers that are caused by these polluting factors. Men, not so much, but women especially, and children especially. So what we do then? What do we do then? Do we average out the number of cancers per person, and then you know half are women, half are men, so it's an acceptable level? Or do you go in and say, no, there is no acceptable level. There's no acceptable level for putting this type of pollution, these toxins in water that people are going to be drinking and bathing in, and making their coffee and making their formula for their kids.
Right.
It's like that's the time to stop the pollution, is stop it from going into the water in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Stop it from affecting people, and we hear a lot about jobs, Cynthia, right? We heard a lot about jobs with Princeton Oaks, and they're going to create so many jobs, and jobs, and we have all this great income. Well, you need the income to pay the hospital bills, because it's going to make you sick.
Yeah.
Right. So we're all on this kind of rat race. We're on this mouse wheel where you work hard to make the money, to put it away, to pay the hospital bill that comes up because you polluted your own water by helping this industry pollute the water, and now you've got to use the income to pay your hospital bills
and the medicine
or the medicines. Yes, exactly. Pay the medicines, and here's an idea. Let's stop making people sick.
Exactly.
How about that for an idea?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's instead of giving people money so that they can buy their medicines and pay their hospital bills. Let's not. What if we didn't make people sick in the first place? And you look at the United States and the amount of cancer that we have in this country, and the amount of pollution that we have in this country, and it doesn't take a neurosurgeon or one of your experts, Steve, to say there's a correlation here.
Right.
We have all this pollution and we have all this cancer. There's got to be a connection between the two.
Chuck, I've got a question for you. And I hear Dave's frustration too, that we go to meeting after meeting and we do everything the right way. We always make the better argument and we always lose, or almost always lose. So I've heard you, Chuck, talk about bees. We got to be like a swarm of bees, because you saw it happen in a bear hunt. You were one of the leaders of the bear hunt. And I think you and I have talked about this. I would submit, but I want to hear your opinion on this, that you got to hit it from every angle. We got to do rights of nature. We got to do the courts. We got to do the media. We still got to do the political. And even though it's not very effective, we still need people showing up at the county commission meetings, because you're starting to change the culture. But maybe you could tie that into your experience with the bear hunt and what happened.
Well, one thing that I can say from experience, and when you say I was one of the leaders of the bear hunt, I was the leaders of the opposition. Opposition to the bear hunt. I just want to make that clear.
Sorry about that.
I'm not a bear hunter, but that's one thing I learned there, is that bees work. Bees work. And if you empower people to become individuals that are attacking a problem from every different angle, delivering a sting in unpredictable times, that can drive off, the bees can drive off a bear. even though a bee is this big and it bears 500 pounds. And by creating this charter amendment and empowering people to basically become bees and attack from different directions, attack this problem of pollution, I do believe that is going to change the paradigm. That's going to, here's a question for you. If you're a business, you're a polluting business. Let's say you've got a strip mine and you have phosphate mine, and you're going to have to dump pollution in the waters. Are you going to locate in a county in which every citizen, all 1.4 million people, can come at you with a lawsuit?
Right.
Or are you going to go somewhere else?
Right.
You're gonna go somewhere else.
You got to go somewhere else.
It's no different than the drug dealer.
No, it's no.
Right.
Well, yeah, you know what? I think that you're onto something there, because drugs are chemicals. These people are pushing these chemicals in the water.
Mhm.
It's against our will. It's against the will of the people. It's damaging the residents. It's causing illness. I like that.
Yeah.
They are. They're basically drug dealers.
Mhm.
These pollution sources. So why not enable the people to go after them and chase them out of the neighborhood, basically, right? And that's what happens. Number one, they have the system currently, because they've bought the city council, they bought the county commission. That's already in their heads the way that's going to happen when this vote comes up. And then we all line up, it's like, okay, Cynthia talks and I talk and Steve talks. Okay, let's have a vote. Let's have a motion. Where's the motion? Who's making the motion? Who's second? All in favor? Okay, it's done. And you change that system to now all of a sudden there's a different dynamic, and the polluting source comes in. And they say, "Oh, I heard what happened to the last guy that tried to do this. He got chased out of town."
Mhm.
So even if, and this is what some people say, "Oh, you think it's going to hold up? You think it's going to hold up in court?" Okay, look, even if it's just a holstered gun, okay, here's the scenario. We walk into a bar. It's a Wild West bar, and there's a big brawl going on, and that's the way it is right now. It's just chaos, right? People are getting hurt, whatever. You're the new sheriff. Now, do you pull your gun and shoot somebody, or do you put your hand on the gun and you say, "Okay, listen, I don't know who's going to be the first to get shot, but it could be any one of you."
Right.
Russian roulette.
Russian roulette. And then all of a sudden they all quiet down. They quit throwing chairs and throwing punches. And that's what I see happening here, just like what happened in Pittsburgh. They passed something very similar to this. The fracking operations pulled out of Pittsburgh. They didn't want to go to trial.
Right.
They just said, "We're just going to go somewhere else,"
Mhm.
right? And I'm good with that. Let them go somewhere else.
Well, I can tell you, I've been a trial lawyer for 31 years. And one of the things I've learned is people, or at least most people, are really afraid or don't like confrontation,
Mhm.
even the developers. And because they're used to getting their way. They're used to going in, taking their commissioners out to lunch and giving them $1,000 or $2,000 and getting whatever they want.
Mhm.
But when they finally get some resistance and some real confrontation, they don't like that. And I think the more confrontation we give them, the more unpleasant we make their lives, then the better off we're going to be.
Maybe we should invade their board meetings, the developers.
I'm all for direct action. I just got to tell you, that's my own thing.
Okay, before we get into trouble here, let's go to Joe down in Fort Myers. What do you have for us, Joe?
In the end, I know some things can be pretty simple. A right to clean water is inalienable. In my conversations with the public, people are absolutely astounded to learn that they don't have that right already because they expect it. I mean, that should be the default. The fact that it isn't shows just how out of whack the system is. You start with clean water, and then after that, you arrange how you're going to develop and grow food and that sort of stuff. But everybody should have clean water.
Yeah,
It's basic.
So many people I talk to, Joe, they say, when you explain this to them and what we're trying to do, they say that's a no-brainer, right? And it
is a
it's like,
no-brainer.
why not start with, okay, look, you have the right to clean water. Everybody has the right to clean water. And then if somebody's going to pollute, they are infringing upon those rights. And that's, the way I should see that it should be. That's the way it should be. It's not, somebody should not have a right to pollute up until the point where they start killing people. It's like saying somebody has a right to go into a mall with a semi-automatic weapon and fire until somebody gets shot and they can prove that it was that guy, even though there are 10 people with automatic rifles. I think I can prove that it was that guy with that automatic rifle was the guy that shot. What do you think, Dave?
Well, I think, basically that's what you got to do. We also have to change our politicians. I mean, it's not enough just to, go about this in a smart way of, going after and changing, putting some ordinances on the books and putting some laws out there. We also have to change some of our politicians in order to get those laws on the books and to get things changed. First start locally and then go, towards the Tallahassee and replace those guys there and replace the ones in Washington as well. Because we don't do that. They're just going to take, and preempt everything we do and take control over, even what makes sense, because quite frankly, they don't seem to understand. They don't get it. And for me, the fundamental rule is this, we human beings are a part of nature, not a part from it. They don't seem to get it. They must think they're a part of money or something like that, not a part of nature. But, we all have to drink clean water. We all have to have that to live. And I don't know, what they think they're going to do when when they pollute our river, and they're in our town. What are they going to do? They're going to always have to bring their water with them. And what do they think is going to happen to us? So we just have to keep fighting. We have to keep working to change the system from within. And I don't see any other way to do it.
Yeah, and I know. I've run for public office. Cynthia's run for public office, and Steve is probably about to run for public office. So we've tried that, and some get through and some don't. And the ones that get through, I look at Nicole Wilson, who took on a long-standing, well-connected candidate in District 1, and she was. They tried to beat her up with the right to clean water. Oh, this is crazy. This is crazy. And what happened? She ended up winning 57 to 42. So I think after a few of those elections happen, and people like Patricia Sigmund win, they're going to take a different look, because when they see that people really want this, to deny it, to do what they're trying to do right now with preemption, and how unpopular that is, I think, the more that we make politicians who are on the wrong side of this question pay the price, we kick them out of office. I mean, and that's basically what happened to Nicole's seat. They're going to pay attention. What do you think, Cynthia?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to have a shift of change.
I think you're right. I think it's already started. I started feeling that they put these crazy mailers out there that people want to marry trees and stuff like that, and give Wilbur the chance to sue, and Wilbur the pig the chance to sue. I forget who said it, but if first they laugh at you, and then they get mad at you, and then they accept it, and then you win, right? So I think we're somewhere between the first stage and the second. They've gone from laughing to, trying to stop us through legal actions or whatever, passing bills or whatever, silliness that they're trying to do. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Cynthia, would you like to give us any words of wisdom?
Well, we're just going to have to keep pressing on and keep dragging our friends along with us. And hopefully they'll drag some more friends and we'll end this mess.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And how about you, Steve?
Yeah, I just want to encourage everybody that's listening to take a role, become one of the bees, with a special admonition to some of my lawyer friends who went to law school and have these skills, who are sitting on the sidelines. You need to get off your butt and help us out. We need your trial skills. There's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I mean, this is their chance for redemption.
That's right.
I mean,
lots of them need it, and a lot of them are my friends. And they need it.
All right, you get some type of volunteer credit or something with the state for that? Yeah, see, they can write that off and
the pro bono work, right?
Yeah, that.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody who's been watching today, and everybody who will watch this in replay. You can share this to your own page, and you can like it, of course. We have less than 2 weeks. Isn't that amazing? We have less than 2 weeks till we're going to hear the final verdict on the right to clean water in the state of, in Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, we're shifting that change. Full steam ahead.
Guess what's next, folks?
Let me correct myself.
January.
Orange County, the 1.4 million people in Orange County, and again, this is the largest municipality in the United States that will have passed this kind of charter amendment or ordinance or what have you. So we're here to make history. There are people watching us from all around the world, waiting to see what happens here. Let's face it, the United States is not an easy place to change. And, it's taken years and years and years to evolve to the point that we are a more perfect union, and we continue to change. So everyone out there, everyone watching can be a part of this change by voting yes on Charter Question 1. And while you're at it, you might as well vote yes on Charter Questions 2 and 3 at the same time, because they're all good. All three of them are good. So with that, thank you all, and we'll see you next week on the Right to Clean Water.